Welcome back into the Sporting News Studio. I'm Stephen Levine. On my right is Scott Ridge, Tom Vandervoort on my left. We're going to have a heavyweight bout between these guys about whether or not it's time for the NFL to capitulate and bring the referees back to the game. Let's start by discussing the effect the replacement refs have had on the NFL. Scott, do you think it has been a substantial problem?
The games are sloppy. I don't think anybody can argue that. What I would suggest is that the replacement officials are managing the game well enough so that the difference to fans is not as obvious as it would be.
So you're fine with good enough?
At this point, yes. Or what I'm trying to suggest is that how many blown calls have we seen? And everybody points to the Monday night game as the one that's nobody can take it anymore, bring back the regular officials. I would say that how many blown calls were in that game? In the end, they got them all right. Yes, everybody can argue about control of the game and the players pushing the boundaries with the replacement officials. And I'm not here to say that they're not trying that. But I would also say that it's not hurting the league as a product to the degree that people
I think it is hurting the league.
Well, wait a minute.
Product.
With instant replay, isn't it true that you're going to get the calls right pretty much every time?
It's not really a question, I don't think, as much. Obviously, any blown call is not what you want. You don't want extra timeouts. You don't want blown calls. You don't want the ball spotted in the wrong place. I mean, we all know those things. But I think it is fair to say that we have those types of issues maybe at a lesser level with the regular guys. I think what we're finding out is the real detriment to the game is in a game management type of fashion. There's no flow. There's extra time. They're consulting a lot more with each other. They're not in the position to make the calls they need to make. And yes, the players are pushing the boundaries because they don't know what the standards are. I would submit to you that's not even the replacement's fault. The problem isn't necessarily the replacement officials. It's the lack of regular officials. I don't care who you brought in. You would have this kind of situation as these new guys get acclimated. So I think that's hurting the game. And I think Joe Flacco, when he brought up integrity of the game and he used that phrase, I think he was right. This is a league, okay? This is a league that cares about what color your socks are and how high they are. So if that's an issue with your brand and your brand equity and the NFL shield, then the fact that the officials are letting these games get out of hand, and you might say to me, 9 extra minutes, that's no big deal. There's about 11 minutes of actual game action in these things. About 11 minutes. So if you look at game action plus in-between plays, you're talking about 10% addition to that number. The rest is commercials anyway. That's significant if all that's coming from trying to get the ball spotted right, marking off yardage and all that.
We got it. So, Scott, why not just pay the guys their money and bring the first team back?
Which is clearly what everybody wants. But the NFL believes its position on officials is in the right, and they're not going to budge just because the easy solution is to throw money at it. Here's the bottom line.
But doesn't the NFL have lots and lots and lots of money?
They do, clearly. But the answer can't be, here's your pile of money, you win, when it's not hurting the business in any way, shape, or form. TV ratings are through the roof through the first 2 weeks. The pace of the game that you suggest, by 9 minutes, is that really the difference maker and what's going to make or break the NFL? I would say no. One of the reasons the games are so long is because they take TV timeouts after every kick. So it's not just the replacement refs that are extending the games.
Well, to that point, I would say this. In the short term, I agree with you. In the short term, I don't think it's going to hurt the business. But the reason the NFL is the top sport in America is because they pay very, very careful attention. Some might say they're a bit anal about paying careful attention to the way the game works on the field, to the product on the field. And that's where I come back to my sock analogy, that these kinds of things are things that the NFL says, this is important. Excessive celebration and all that. They tweak the rules every single year to try to improve the product on the field. And what you're talking about here is a major detriment to the product on the field. Now look, if the refs each won $1 million, I agree with you. That's too much. But I suspect they're looking for maybe more of a commensurate increase in their compensation relative to the growth of the game. And if that's the case, Tom, I would say the NFL needs to go ahead and give them that.
Tom, we're talking about a game where you could call holding on almost every play.
That's
where you could call pass interference on nearly every play.
Which makes that intangible effect of the regular refs even more important.
The league looks at these replacement officials and says, you know what? The game is moving along, maybe not at the pace that we want through 2 weeks, but ultimately the product on the field is not to the degree that they're going to make a deal with the regular officials just because everybody wants it.
Ratings are up.
Well, here's what I would say. In the end, I think what we've learned is this, that the referees bring some additional value as far as controlling the game that we didn't, and maybe the NFL didn't fully appreciate going into this thing. It's up to them as to whether or not it's worth the price of paying them. But if they have not recalculated what they think the value of these guys is based on the first 2 weeks, that's where I think they're making a mistake. If the refs are asking for the moon, well, then I guess they're not going to get it. But if they're asking for a little bit more, I think the NFL might want to think about it.
All right, I'm going to call a TV timeout on this conversation.
We're replacing
for now.
you, my friend. You're out. I'm bringing in someone from the lingerie league.
That's fine. Me and Hockey Lee, we're going to have lunch at Applebee's every day.
You can't handle Hockey Lee, baby.
I can handle Hockey Lee. For Scott Ridge and Tom Vandervoort, I'm Stephen Levine. Thanks for watching.